This interview is brought to you in association with Rabobank.
Hello and welcome to this Rural Delivery online interview. I'm Roger Bourne and today I'm joined by the Chief Executive of New Zealand Young Farmers, Terry Copeland. Terry, welcome to you.
Oh, thanks very much. Great to be here.
Terry, your organisation set up originally for what purpose and what's it doing now?
New Zealand Young Farmers was set up in 1932, and back in the 1930s there was a real desire to try and link really quite remote young people working on farms together to improve skills and to provide a social network so that people feel connected and empowered to continue on doing what they're doing. And that really hasn't changed over the years.
Going back to 1932, the world that we were in, how different was it in a broader sense on a farm than you are today for a person living in that environment?
Yeah, so the sense of isolation back in the 1930s and 40s was so severe. Your closest neighbour might have been, a 15-minute horse ride away. So the feeling of isolation does a number of things. One, your productivity goes down because you just don't have that stimulation of people around you. And so there was a real need to make you feel like you belong to something in the bigger picture rather than just your own operation. And today, of course, social media, phones, etc., no one's more than a couple of metres apart. The fact that your phone's in your pocket, you're connected to so many people. So the mechanisms are quite different today than they were back in the 1930s, but the premise around trying to be upskilled and how you fit into the bigger picture is just as relevant.
One of the issues that was relevant then is relevant now is this real concern around mental health and identifying and providing support for those people who are struggling for whatever reason to find positives in the environment they're in or in their lives or their relationships. How big a problem is that, as you were aware of?
Yeah, it's bigger than people think. And it's for me, the really sad thing is it's not openly discussed. We don't actually realise the significance of the problem until you actually get out there and start talking to people. And there's a stigma around mental health, and there shouldn't be, because it's basically just saying that you're in a position where you're not able to make really good decisions anymore. And there might be a variety of reasons or pressures that put you into that position. And for young people, you've got less ability, I believe, to actually deal with that because you don't have life skills yet developed to know how you react to things. So, yeah, I believe it's a significant problem. We've had issues within our membership this year of members committing suicide or attempting suicide. And we've made a real conscious decision as an organisation to front foot the discussion around, well, actually, if you're not right or you see your mates aren't right, do something about it. Don't just say, oh, he looks a bit blue today. Actually go up and say, you know what, I'm a bit worried about you. How are you feeling? You're not thinking about doing yourself in, are you? And all of a sudden, the stigma's gone because someone's asked you a direct question. But of course, they're not brought up to talk about that. So it's a subject the media don't like talking about historically. There's been in the last decade, the lack of or the accord around not saying that someone's committed suicide but they've died actually reinforces the stigma that it's a bad thing. So we're trying to break that down. I've got a personal experience myself with my sister committing suicide in May this year, and she'd had mental health issues, reasonably significant issues for probably 15 or 20 years, and we thought that she was sort of doing quite well. So it came out of the blue for us, and we were well used to it. So we're not brought up to recognise signs in people, and then even worse than that, we don't actually go and ask people how they're feeling.
Well, this is an issue which affected well over 500 people last year in New Zealand. I think 579, the latest coroner's figures. An increase from the year before in pure numbers, and in the way that we do, we rationalise that down by saying there's more people in the country, so per capita it's the same, but we've still got more people affected. And some of the things that the Chief Coroner has pointed out here as being key indicators or causal is, the underlying mental health, of course, but you've got poverty, you've got drug and alcohol abuse, family violence. What are the drivers that you're seeing that are associated with that depth of depression in a rural environment? Are they the same drivers?
Yeah, I think in many cases the drivers are the same. There's a lot of responsibility particularly on farm, for younger people to perform. People are promoted, particularly in the dairy industry, you can be promoted into quite senior roles at an early age. So there's a level of responsibility, and when there's been a downturn or a drought or any other things that are affecting business as usual, the weight of that can certainly go onto those people's shoulders. One of the other drivers, I think, that isn't often talked about is relationship issues. So, whether relationships break down, whether there's internal debt pressure, that you've suddenly become a 50-50 share milker and you've taken this massive loan from the bank, and now, how are you going to pay it back? There's a number of things. I think, we've improved a lot of people's social isolation problems in one sense of the word, but we've replaced it with a reasonably impersonal mechanism. So, using your phone to Facebook or Snapchat or whatever it is that you use to connect with people is reasonably impersonal, and you're not in front of them talking. You're not actually able to look someone in the eye and go, what, I think you don't look right to me today.
Now, one of the key things we're getting to here is this importance of people coming together and having opportunities to look each other in the eye and to notice behaviours and to raise behaviours, as you say, in a very direct way, but also to blow off some steam and get away from some of your cares, I guess. Now, recently, Sir John Kirwan suggested that we need to look to sports to do more of that. It still being a driving force for communities to come together in a rural environment, and again, organisations like Young Farmers providing this sort of outlet. What types of things can communities do together?
Look, I think what he said is absolutely spot on. You've got to do things that aren't your everyday lifestyle things. Farmers work bloody hard, and it's very easy just to get into that rut of staying on farm. So whether you join the local rugby club or you go down to your Young Farmers Club, we've got 78 clubs around the country, and it's for people to catch up at the very least once a month and have a beer, catch up with your mates, and just talk through some of the things in a really social environment. But we also do things like, there's skills development and learn how to do fencing or do competitions and things. So there's a whole raft of things that we offer that are designed to make you think differently about yourself, whether it's skill-based or social-based, it doesn't really matter, but to give you an environment where it gives you a bit of relief from the everyday pressures, and that's really vital.
And it's not just young people. I mean, I know we tend to focus on suicide amongst those maybe under 30, but this is an issue which exists across age groups in society. You're an organisation for young people, but young people are affected by suicide of their parents or other members of their family too. So, how do you get this sort of intergenerational, I guess, conversation going, or make sure you're not just focusing on the young ones?
Yeah, I think you're right there too. Again, when I was young, the idea of the sense of community was quite different than it is today. So I think, there needs to be more interaction within the farming community across the generations. And it's fine if it's family farming because, hopefully you're reasonably close with your family. But in situations where we're seeing a lot more corporate farming or employing non-family members on farm, we need to have much better dialogue and discourse right across the community, not just on farm or related to your area. And I think it's a societal thing where we're just not as well connected or have the skills to talk to each other. Like, when I was young, you either phone someone on your party line and hopefully you can actually connect with them, or you had to go and drive around to their house and see them.
Yep.
And, so you were forced, because the only way you can connect, or you wrote them a letter. Whereas these days, there's an easy excuse not to get in front of people. So community, I think the breakdown of community relations has been an unexpected consequence of the advances of social media in our communication areas.
There's a broader issue here, which is also sort of alluded to by Sir John when he talked about people getting out there, being active. Your physical health and your mental health, we know, are linked in many respects. And by the way, are you guys linked to the Farm Strong campaign?
Yeah, we are. We work really heavily with FMG. They're the principal sponsor of the Young Farmer of the Year contest, and through the Farm Strong program, we've really encouraged our members to get out and do the cycling tour and other bits and pieces. And you're absolutely right. There's a fundamental problem with the average fitness levels of rural and farming people. You know, the advances of technology and what you can do from behind the desk as opposed to being in the field makes it a lot easier to be unhealthy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that if you're physically fit, you're much more likely to be mentally fit. You have direct correlation there. And, you know, it does worry me that you look at a lot of the farming sector and there is health issues. There's weight issues. There's, diabetes and things that weren't so prevalent a generation ago.
Is there a message that young farmers have for those who are suffering themselves or feel they have someone who's close to them who might not have the right sort of hopeful outlook that you would hope that people could have?
Yeah, my message is, as caring people, we should be reaching out to those we think are at risk. People at risk don't ask for help because they're not able to. It's not that they don't want to, but in my experience, they just don't have that ability to reach up and go, I'm really suffering. So it's up to us to identify in our people around us that if someone doesn't look right, then for goodness sake, just go and ask them. And you'll be surprised how positively that will be received in most cases. Now, sometimes I'll tell you to bugger off, but in the main, the fact that you've shown enough care to ask the question will get them in the right process. So I wrote a piece that got picked up by a couple of publications, and I had about this very subject. And I had a woman ring me and said, look, thank you so much for what you wrote, because I actually confronted my son who was acting really bizarre. He's fourth generation on the farm. He's engaged to be married. He's got everything to live for, but he just seemed really blue. So I asked him, and he was having suicidal thoughts, and now he's getting some help. So, you know, I feel really good from a personal perspective. I've at least helped one person directly who's now getting some help rather than potentially going out in the back paddock and doing something really stupid.
Good on you, Terry. Thank you very much for your time today. It's an important issue, and we'll stay in touch.
Cool. Thanks very much.
And if you're listening to this interview and you need help for yourself or you'd like help for somebody else, you can have a look for the links on our website. And if it's an emergency for yourself or someone else, you can always call 111.
This interview was brought to you in association with Rabobank.